Yes, celebration is around us. Good morning and welcome to today's edition of Sports Updates on Lagoon Radio, your number one online gospel radio in Nigeria and official radio of the Anglican Communion Diocese of Lagos. We are transmitting live from the Archbishop's Palace in Marina, Lagos. Anosike Chimezie is my name. Welcome once again. And yes, it's a full house today. Yes, I have with me in the studio, Benga Bello is here. Benga, good morning and
Good
welcome to the
morning,
program.
Chimeze. It's always good to be here.
Yes, and also I have Yemi. He's back. Good morning.
Morning, Chimeze. It's good to be here as usual.
Yes, it's good to always be here. Remember, you can download the app on Google Play Store and Apple Store. You can also follow us on our social media platforms. On Facebook, Lagoon Radio Nigeria, and on Twitter and Instagram, it's Lagoonradio.Ng. Listen to us directly via the link www.lagoonradio.ng. Yes, a lot has been happening in the world of sports. Yes, no thanks to the Russian invasion. But our first point of call this morning will be boxing. Anthony Joshua, he is likely to fight Joe Joyce or Deontay Wilder because Usage has gone home to fight the Russian invasion. He's from Ukraine. He has gone to help his country. So that fight is in doubt, and if because he's not in the right state of mind. So Anthony Joshua Joyce and or Deontay Wilder, which one would you prefer for him?
Honestly, I think the whole idea of this interim bout that Joshua is looking at ahead of when Usyk will be ready should ordinarily have been to pick a contender who is not one of the strongest that he can face. But as the promoter mentioned, Eddie Hearn, that Joshua wants a tough interim bout and is looking at Joyce or Wilder. These are two tough contenders. I would always avoid a Deontay Wilder. And the reason being that if you are not strong enough, you would lose that bout. It is hardly would you see any fight that Wilder is involved in that he would not knock out his opponent, even if he ends up losing, as in his last fight. So the issue is if you are facing a Wilder, can you take a punch? Because he would actually drop you in the course of the game or in the course of the bout. However, I would ordinarily have expected Joshua to settle for someone who, I don't want to say a lesser minion, but just to settle for someone who he can actually compete with as an interim bout. Because don't forget, this is just an interim bout. Pending when he goes back to the title fight with Usyk, whenever that is. And from what Eddie Hearn is saying, they're looking at having an interim bout between May and June. But it also means that Joshua is not afraid. He's confident and he's willing to take on anyone, even someone in the range of a Wilder. So, I mean, let's give it to him. If he's confident enough to face Wilder, then so be it. And it will also be a bout that will actually command a lot of funds in terms of box office to take home if he's facing a Wilder who is a top contender any day. So I wish him well. I would have wanted someone who is not as powerful as a Joyce or Wilder, but then it's his choice and he's willing to take on anyone. And the truth is, if you believe that you are worthy to be a world champion, you should not be afraid to take on anyone at any point in time.
Okay.
I mean, for me, I would think the idea of Joyce, really, to rate Joyce beyond what he is I still think it's an easy fight in quotes. Joyce, British, posts, quite a commendable record. 13 wins, 12 knockouts, one, split decision. And, Joe Joyce, it will look to me, I've not heard so much of him. I don't think he's had a top shot at any of the belts. So the tag, an interim bout and an easy contender, so to speak, I still think Joyce will resonate that as an easy fight as opposed to a Wilder. Like Remy said, Wilder will command box office. He will command so much viewership. And the fact that, Wilder is just coming from 2 back-to-back losses to the Gypsy King, he will certainly have a point to prove. Deontay doesn't come easy. He doesn't. For him, boxing is brawl. And, if you must face him, as Remy said, you've got to be ready to take the punch. Worry for me is if Joshua is going to go against the Deontay Wilder. I doubt he will be able to make up for the fight in June. He would have had to take a lot. The training regime is going to be very hard. It's going to take a toll on him physically. Then the bout itself is one that will keep him in some hospital for some time. So I think it's something they should think through very well. But then at the hand for him, the bat that commands the most money is what he'll be looking at.
That's what I've been thinking. Maybe the head is looking at the financial side of the fight.
Possibly.
Okay, and the Gypsy King has hinted that he may retire after the next fight with Dillian White. And so some people have said that it's too early for such a fighter to retire at this early age.
Well, look, the truth is, the Gypsy King has probably looked around and said, look, I've beaten Wilder, I've beaten a Klitschko, and as far as it's concerned, Joshua is no match for him. And really, he feels there's no competition. And if he's able to leave whilst the ovation is loudest, he will be in the legend books, so to speak. So for him to give a hint that he will be leaving, he's also trying to say that I'll be leaving as the undisputed champion. Nobody has beaten me because nobody can actually beat me. And of course, I deserve all the accolades. So I think it could be either of two things. One, he feels nobody's going to ever beat him, as he has beaten the most competitive of the lot. And secondly, he feels that after that, he probably will face a lull in terms of competition and activity. So why not go ahead and do something else? I think he's done extremely well for his career. He came up when people thought little of him. And for him to have beaten Klitschko the way he did, and for him to have beaten Wilder. So look, it just shows that he deserves a lot of respect. And if he wants to walk away from the sport, then that's good. Although for boxers, it's always difficult. They always say they are retiring, and all of a sudden you then start to hear about a rematch, a comeback. So don't put it too far away from him. If he then decides to come back, maybe when he feels in 2 years that maybe there's a need to come back, either to make a name for himself or maybe beat any of the contenders who I suspect will have beaten before anyway. So yes, I mean, fingers crossed. Let's see. Let's watch the space.
Yeah, well said. I mean, the Gypsy King right now is undisputed, champion. It's difficult to actually find. I haven't beaten Deontay. I mean, Deontay was the only person who we all knew had the brawl to contend and match him man for man. He's always discarded Joshua, and unfortunately, Joshua didn't. When Joshua had the chance, Joshua himself didn't make a push for that bout, and perhaps if he had, we will be talking about a rematch, perhaps with the Gypsy King. So, calling for a retirement, I think I'll take him from where Remy left. That look, when boxers say they want to retire, there's a lure. When you love the sports, there's a lure to come back. There's always that big match. You think, okay, let me give this a shot again. And we saw a George Foreman came back into the ring at 45, and immediately he won the bout. He wanted more. So I think when you love the sports, the lures will come at you to come. Let's see how it goes. Let's even see the match with Dillian White first, and then see where we take it from there.
Okay, on to tennis. Something happened like in the last championship. Alexander Zverev, he said that his expulsion from Mexican Open was the biggest mistake of his career. Remember, he had an outburst with an umpire, and he had to smash the umpire's chair. He said he will bounce back stronger, that he has learnt his lessons. And I keep on saying, these young tennis players, they seem not to be fitting in the shoes of the likes of Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic.
I recall immediately that incident happened, Serena Williams, who had such outbursts, well, nothing compared to Zverev, when she played Naomi Osaka, saying that if she had gone that far what Zverev had done, she probably would have been in jail, being the black that she is. I think sometimes the pressures of these games and competition, play their part on these players. But then, as a professional, you one of the things is that the sport is actually a gentleman's sport. What do you call it? The Wimbledon is called the gentleman's, club, as it were. So you don't lose your cool such that you'll break and smash an umpire's chair. I think that was taking it too far, and I'm surprised that expulsion is still what we're hearing. I'll be thinking that something stiffer, would have been meted by the Tennis Association, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's banned from one or two, big championships, but I think it deserves every punishment that the tennis world metes him at this stage.
No, he has been fined $40,000 and suspended for 8 weeks.
Those guys will pay They will pay $100,000.
Definitely. I think apart from the financial punishment, I think the suspension will be more painful, because then you actually need to be able to speak to your sponsors on how you will not be able to leverage or brand any of their logos at a tournament because you've actually been suspended. But I think generally for some of these competitions, a lot of pressure and emotions. I mean, when we remember someone like a John McEnroe, he was always very visibly and verbally expressive in his matches. Even when he had his own co-partner and they had their doubles match, he would actually express himself. So these things happen. And we noticed over time that a player is either speaking out or he's smashing his racket. But when you now go towards the umpire, then it deserves a lot of punishment. And see, in Djokovic case too, when he struck the ball against one of the umpires. So I think the truth is there's a need to have a lot of calmness on the court. Like Benga said, it requires a lot of mental capacity. And that's why even when you're playing, they expect the crowd to be quiet. So when you now go ahead and start to expose or express certain things that are physically violent in a way, then it needs to be reconsidered. So I don't blame him for trying to express his regrets, but I think the punishment is deserving, because you really need to stop that kind of conduct so that you avoid a situation where people go ahead and physically attack an umpire, even if it wasn't intended in the first place.
And it will be good to see if Serena Williams is still in the competition, because a lot of things happen, and she made this comment that she would have ended up in jail. Remember the last time she said that the kind of testing that the way they test her in tournaments, is it just because that she is black? Is this 8 weeks suspension not? Is it not? For me, it's very, very lenient on.
Yeah, I mean, it comes across as a slap on the wrist, really, because the players are meant to be the frontliners in protecting the umpires, whatever the umpires do, And when you start to visibly and physically attack the umpire, it denigrates the game and brings the game into disrepute. I mean, the emotion that comes with sports definitely come with the fact that you could disagree with an umpire. You can express your displeasure at a call and, make your feelings known. But then you have to always remember that apart from being a model and, and being a star, particularly for people you're marketing, you've got to keep your head down and make sure that you focus on the game. So, as I said, I think I wouldn't be surprised if the tennis world still, increases the punishment that Zverev will have to take in at this time.
Okay, let's move on to another story. Djokovic, he withdrew from the ongoing Indian Wells, and he said that he's not going to participate in the Miami Open because of this vaccination issue. What is going on with Djokovic?
Look, from what is happening, this may practically be the end of the season for Djokovic at this rate. Don't forget that even at the French Open, they had actually said anyone who's not vaccinated is not likely to participate. And this is someone who has always said he will not be vaccinated. So you're looking at practically a major event that he will not participate in. And if he continues that way, he may just be kissing other tournaments. I mean, particularly the Grand Slams goodbye. Now, I'm sure you've also noticed that he's no longer ranked number one player. Number one player is Medvedev. So I think Djokovic either needs to reconsider his position and take a long-term look at his career, because you don't need all the negative publicity at this rate. More so as the world is becoming very sensitive. We're looking at Ukraine, Russia. Now you're looking at vaccination. You're looking at a need for you to align with where the world is going in terms of safety and in terms of protection. So if you want to avoid a tournament, well, maybe what he's done is to avoid a similar occurrence with what happened to him the other time, where he would then be expelled from the country. So maybe this is meant to be a proactive decision to avoid such a scenario. But if that is the case, then he probably also won't be in France. He's missing another Grand Slam tournament. And at this rate, he may continue to drop down on the rankings with what he's doing.
That's where I have my fears, because he will no longer be ranked at the top. And maybe whenever he comes back into the game, there is this match rustiness will be part of him.
Honestly, Djokovic cuts, for me, a streak of somebody who has made up his mind to follow through with his belief. I think there's a conviction that comes with things like vaccine, religion, and all those things. And I think Djokovic has decided to stick, he's just stuck with his guns that, look, I don't believe in this vaccine. I don't think it's something that should be made compulsory for any competition. And I think he belongs to a right group that focuses on rights and the need for people to be respected in view of how they want their bodies to be treated. And it's like how the Catholics regard vaccination or all this blood transfusion, actually. So people like that are very difficult to convince. And for somebody who is in the limelight of his career, who's chasing a record with one of the greatest, really, amongst the three best you have around, and for him to stick to his guns, then I think we should begin to reconsider respecting his own wishes. He must have put his career in jeopardy, put his career in the backseat, and follow through his mind. And I think, maybe the tennis world should just let Djokovic be. He knows the consequences of some of these actions. He has to stick with it. Funny enough, I don't think he's been so intrusive into other people's affairs anyways. So I think we should leave him. It's his personal life, it's his career. So whatever he chooses to do, good luck to him.
Okay, good luck to him. And on to the world number one. Russia's number one, Daniel Medvedev, says he wants to continue promoting his sport, but is not sure if he will be allowed to play on. Yes, talking about the various bans that has been coming, sanctions are all over Russia. But the Tennis Federation has said that players can compete individually, not attaching their flags to it. But this guy is he's contemplating that he might be well down on the court. Daniel Medvedev, world number one.
Well, look, I think he has also realized that he's facing a lot of challenges now. A lot of challenges based on the country he's from. Now he's ranked number one, and as far as the tennis world is concerned, his country's name is not going to be placed against his name. So he's almost like a neutral player. And I think that would affect you when you go into a tournament, because there's a lot of negative attention, not just because of you, not you as a person, but from where you come from. So he may face a lot of hostility in terms of crowd. He may face a lot of hostility even from some of his sponsors. And I think in some countries that he may want to go to participate or perform, they may actually say, we don't want anyone from Russia to compete. So he has seen a lot of challenges, and he can see that there might be restrictions. Now, as a player, he needs to have the mental awareness when he's playing. But then he's going to be distracted by things that are political in a way. So he's being careful, and I don't blame him. Now, the issue is, I think he should go ahead and continue to compete wherever he can. But he needs to acknowledge that he will most likely be competing as a neutral athlete, at
Well,
least for now.
when Naomi Osaka won the last tournament last year, she talked about mental strength and all of them. Will you boil down to the case of Medvedev this time around?
Sure, it will. You see, the mental element of competition sometimes outweighs the physical. Now, the truth is that if you look at most sportsmen, they all possess almost the same physical need, or what I would call the physical abilities, so to speak. But what differentiates people from others is that mental capacity to go through, the difficulties. If you look at the final of the Australian Open, physically, Nadal was nowhere near what Medvedev was doing that day. Two sets down, it was as if, look, it was going to be a blast. Now, at that point, the only thing that will work for Nadal is to form a strategy from his mental strength. And it was the mental strength that pulled him through that. So, when things like politics, things like crowd antagonism comes, definitely it is going to affect that mental capacity. And when the crowd is against you, it's tennis is very emotional a game. And, the split second of something just distracting you could be your undoing. So Medvedev, as it is, he's young also. He may not have the maturity to be able to accommodate this kind of, attrition he's facing. So it's a difficult one for him. I personally feel for him because he's a player on the rise. From those of them who are coming up, after the big three, he seems to be in the forefront. Tsitsipas and all those, they all seem to have fallen through the cracks, and he seems to be the one just pushing and hitting the finals, hitting the US Open. He won it, the last one. So for a player of that stature and strength to face this attrition from the world, so to speak, it's definitely, I think, is going to affect him. And, we hope he'll be able to. Let's just pray, as I said, that this war ends soon so that we can all, go back into the level playing field that the world is and make sports again, totally divorced from sports.
Okay, you're still listening to Sports Update on Lagoon Radio. We'll go on this short break. When we come back, it will be time for football. Yes, the Russian invasion is affecting everywhere. So we'll come back and we'll talk more on it. Keep listening to us. We'll be right back. Yes, On Top of the World, that song was dedicated to the Super Eagles the last time they won the African Cup of Nations in 2013 in South Africa. Yes, they were on top of the world then. And looking back now, there is nothing to regret. And we hope that after March 29th, that we will have no regret. Yes, the first leg of Nigeria versus Ghana comes up on the 25th of March, and the second leg in Abuja comes up on the 29th of March 2022, and that's the last phase of the qualifiers for Africa in the 2022 FIFA World Cup that will be hosted by Qatar. It's still Sports Update on Lagoon Radio. Remember to download the app on Google Play Store and Apple Store. Follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook, Lagoon Radio Nigeria, Twitter and Instagram, Lagoonradio.Ng. Bunga is still here and Yemi is still here. And yes, Ogenyo Anazi, over the last week, he said that those criticizing his name on the standby list doesn't understand anything about football.
Well, he's entitled to his opinion, so we will take it as a respect. We will just leave his opinion. But for me, that kind of outburst just shows the fact that he himself probably doesn't want to accept the fact that, look, there are boys who are more than deserving to be on that standby list away from him. But then it is the coach's choice. We can't, we can't put ourselves in their offices. It's their office. So if anything happens, but then why are we making so much hula baloo about it's just a standby list? Hopefully, most of those who are on the main list will not get injured or have anything that will prevent them from playing. But the last week we spoke about the fact that we had just about 4 or 5 midfielders on that list, and we thought it was just too too short a number, given the fact that we might be going into a match where we might be needing, alternative midfielders. If the Ghanaians try to, just stuff the midfield and prevent us from getting passes through the middle. So if that happens, then we will see that list might become really contentious, because it now becomes who amongst the standby players is Eguavon or Amunike trying to. So I think it's at that point then we will start to really look at this Ogenye Onazi matter. Remy, what do you think?
I mean, you're right. The truth is, you always want to give the coach the limit within which he should be able to express himself, choose his players, and then be accountable for it. But I think people have rightly expressed their opinions like they're entitled to as far as Onazi is concerned. You recall that in one of our matches, I believe this was in Uyo or what have you, when we had played South Africa and we lost that match at home. Onazi was the captain of that team. He didn't really play very well. And I think subsequent matches, he had actually been excluded for similar reason. And I've also tried to look at what he's done since he left Lazio in 2016. I mean, he's been in Turkey, he's been in Lithuania, he's been in Denmark, he's now in Saudi Arabia. So really, I haven't seen so many of his games. I don't even know how many matches he has played for Al Adala, his club in Saudi Arabia. So people are right to express concern when you see other players playing top flight football regularly and you see them being more competitive. Absolutely. And you can look at our midfield. So what people should also, maybe what Onazi should also look at, some of the concerns being expressed by people, is they're looking at the midfield and the caliber of talent and quality we want in the midfield. And so people want a player of that stature in the midfield. In the attack, you have younger players, you have Osimhen, so you're looking at people who can complement them. So whilst he's entitled to his opinions, he also should consider that other people are entitled to their opinions, because they're looking at a team that is younger and they want someone who can complement. And from what they've seen so far, they haven't seen anything which shows that Onazi is able to fit into that role.
Sorry to cut you in, Remy. If you ask me, and let's say the coaches are even looking at experience as a basis for this, what happened to John Mikel Obi compared to what's his name, to Onazi?
Onazi.
Yeah. Last year, Mikel Obi was the captain of Stoke, and he was playing virtually every week. So where did Onazi come from? From Denmark to Lithuania to Saudi Arabia?
He was sacked 2 times by the two clubs.
Exactly. And we had a Mikel, assuming Mikel has not even played in the last 6 months. The fact that he has captained a championship team as at last year.
From Trabzonspor.
And he had shown that, look, he was still fitter, he was still visible than Onazi. Excuse me. So sometimes you start to wonder where these coaches get these choices from, and God forbid, if somebody drops and Onazi has to come into that team. I think there is a disruptive element about him already. When you have the nation or a groundswell against your inclusion in a team, and you get into that team. Look, listen, if Nigeria should lose that game, even if Onazi is not at fault for anything, there is no way there will not be an outcry that, look, this was sabotage. Trust me.
And also, talking about that, Austin Eguavon, during the week, he mentioned that Victor Moses is on his way back to the team. He said, whether we like it or not, Victor Moses still has something to offer this team. Talking about his experience and the rest of it, Victor Moses is currently playing with Spartak Moscow.
Okay, well, to be fair to Victor Moses, I saw one of his games with Spartak. He played well. He actually did score. But, like I said before, Eguavon will have to rise or fall with his selection. And I think we can leave him to make that decision. But he also needs to consider that he has only 2 games between him and Qatar 2022. The first match is in Ghana. The second match is going to be in Abuja. So whoever he considers as fit to be on his personnel for that game, he needs to consider that he has only 2 matches. And this is not the time for trials. He has 2 matches, not only to convince us that he's the man who should be considered to take us to that World Cup, but also to ensure that we actually qualify for the World Cup, because it is extremely important. And I think when you look at the way things are, perhaps it will be the most exciting news for Nigerians in the month of March, for them to be able to say by the end of the month that we have qualified for the World Cup. In similar vein, it will be almost a tragedy for it to be said that we did not qualify for the World Cup. That is the news that people want to listen to towards the end of the month, that we are going to Qatar. And I think Eguavoen needs to look at all the ramifications, the consequences of his decisions, so that at the end of the day, people will be able to say he tried his best, he put his best foot forward, and this is the result we were able to achieve. I wish him all the best.
There are three elements of the strategy of the tragedy for me. Three elements. The first, that Eguavoen lost to a Tunisia who we will never.
I was about coming to that.
But yet, in Nigeria is like the Brazil of Africa, right? If anything is not going on with our football, the country is in a mess. So you were appointed again and given that lifeline. So for me, I think he should defend his appointment with his blood. Now, the second one, or the second element of the tragedy, will be that you are losing to a Ghana with whom not only we have a historical rivalry with, but the fact that it's a Ghanaian team that people just believe, look, they can be blasted. It's meant to be a slam dunk. So what are we thinking about? The third is the fact that in the next 2 years, the Super Eagles are going to be rusty. The World Cup is the only thing that is going to keep them busy between now and the next year. Because the other thing is the Nations Cup, which will come in another 2 years. So, look, Eguavoen has to understand, as Remy said, the ramifications of his action, of his decisions. If anything goes wrong, I don't think the Nigerian nation will forgive him.
Also, speculations from Ghana is saying that Ghana, they said they will not release the list of their players, the new coach, and there are speculations that the former players, he's trying to bring on former players, Sule Muntari and the rest of them, and also another 4 debutants. Why is some Nigerians have reacted, say if he should play with a ghost, that Nigeria is going to beat them.
No, I think the Ghanaians know that this is also very tricky. I mean, they are probably coming from ground zero when you look at their performance at the last Nations Cup, and you can see that even the FA brought in former players to be in the technical crew, because they know it is it is a do or die affair for them. So they need to do everything within their rights. In any way, in terms of giving out a list or what have you, I don't think we should lose sleep over that. The important thing is, when it is statutorily required for you to present your team list, they will present the team list. But we already have an idea of those who will make that team. What the Ghanaians are also trying to do is to avoid a situation where they go with the same number of players or the same caliber of players who were at the Nations Cup, because they feel that mentally they would lose that game. So they're trying to fuse in, inject new blood, bring in new coaches, and see what they can do. But I am sure that they are very, very frightened of the Nigerian team as well, like they should be.
Okay, that game comes up on Friday at the Cape Coast Sports Center, 8:30 p.m. That Friday, 25th of March. And the return leg will be at Moshood Abiola Stadium here in Abuja. And we hope the Super Eagles, they will come up well and maybe pick that ticket for the World Cup. You're still on to Lagoon Radio and a sports update on Lagoon Radio. Yes, is the match day 18 in the Nigerian Professional Football League. Today, Edinburgh will be taking on Plateau United and Niger Tornadoes will be hosting Remo Stars. Tomorrow, Aqua United will be playing against Rangers FC, and Gombe United versus Rivers United, Katsina United versus Wiki Tourists, Kwara United versus Heartland of Owerri, Lobby Stars will be playing host to Abia Warriors, Nasarawa United against MFM, and Sunshine Stars will be at home against Dakada FC. Shooting Stars will be playing Kano Pillars. After week 17 of the Nigerian Professional Football League, Rivers United are still top of that table with 38 points, followed by Plateau United, 37 points. And the bottom, the relegation list, Dakada FC on 17th with 18 points. Niger Tornadoes on Niger Tornadoes, yes, they are 18th with 17 points, and also Katsina United on 19 with 17 points. MFM, yes, I don't know what's their problem this season. They are still bottom of the table with 15 points, and that's it on the Nigerian Professional Football League. Matches will be going across all the centers this weekend. If you are opportuned to go to any stadium, make sure you watch the Nigerian Professional Football League. Yes, over the midweek and the Champions League were down. And such a scenario, why we call it the Champions League, it happened in the Bernabeu. Real Madrid 3, Paris Saint-Germain 1, and Manchester City 0-0. They finished against Sporting Lisbon. That game against Madrid versus PSG, we saw the stuff of champions.
Oh, yes, we did. And I believe PSG will go back and continue to have maybe bad dreams about what happened on that day, because this was a day in which you expected, particularly after Mbappe had scored, that it would be virtually impossible for Real Madrid to score 3 goals without PSG scoring any. And let's not forget, PSG had Mbappe, they had Neymar, they still had Messi. So it was almost like they were going to have a ride against Madrid, and they were coming from having won in France. So coming back to the Bernabeu, seemed things looked difficult, particularly from the first half, and the performance of Real Madrid, which was really shambolic. The second half was, I would probably say, one of the strangest in football. And the manner in which they conspired to give away those goals to Real Madrid is almost impossible. Of course, you can't forget the mastery of Benzema in scoring those goals and the frequency. I mean, the second goal and the third goal was between 2 minutes of each other. So how PSG collapsed in that match, I think the coach needs to be able to give explanations, and the players need to be held accountable. Yes, Madrid played well towards the end of the second half by scoring and qualifying, but the manner in which PSG lost that match, I think there should be an inquisition.
Anyway, I mean, it's PSG kettle of fish as far as I'm concerned. But we can't forget the fact that historically, PSG has transitioned from a French club into becoming an Europe elite. But unfortunately, they failed to transition, into that totality of what you have. When they beat Barcelona in France 4-0, and they went to Spain and capitulate, it was unbelievable. And it was the same thing that played out. I told you last week that both teams were playing 2 critical games in their local league. Yes, and that the mental element of whatever happened in those matches may just play out, and I think it happened.
It happened.
Nice had beaten PSG, and Madrid has risen up a difficult Real Sociedad coming
from behind
to win. And I think that mental strength also translated into what happened on the field. When I saw the lineup Ancelotti presented, it was an attacking lineup, with Valverde replacing Casemiro, who had been suspended. He was going to be going forward. They needed to score anyways. I knew there was going to be holes at the back. And of course, like Remy said, between Carvajal and Milito, they were just all over the place. Mbappe made rubbish of both of them, and 2 goals were scored, if you remember, that were cancelled, and just slight offsides if you look at the VAR, the slow-mo play. So Madrid was there for the taking for PSG. All you needed was an Mbappe who was capable of running that. And if you look at Mbappe, I mean, good thing that what the coach did that day for PSG, Pochettino, was to put Mbappe where a Carvajal who was always going forward and forgetting that he's a defender, and where Militao was also, because if Alaba was there, Alaba would probably give him some good fight. But Militao, he turned his number twice before he scored that goal. So Madrid was there for the taking. But the bravery of between Benzema, Modric and Vinicius Junior, those three were just perfect that day. Vini was doing a lot of nuisance on the left. Modric was running. If you notice, Modric has scored a beautiful goal over the week, against Real Sociedad. It was a masterclass. And, at 36, he kept giving you 100% match per match. Such that for me, I'm worried for Real Madrid that the day Modric drops, you might not find that real, midfield that the transition from defense to attack is just fantastic. And for me, it's just Modric. So, Benzema, 3 goals. Now he's the oldest person to score in a hat-trick in the Champions League. I think we should give the credit to Real Madrid. They had 30 minutes. They made good use of it. And, when you've won the Champions League 13 times, you should be respected at this stage.
Okay, and in midweek, coming next week, Ajax will be playing Benfica and Manchester United versus Atletico de Madrid. Who are you giving these games?
Okay, I think Ajax, historically, it's always been a club that would perform well because they've always relied on youth. They've always relied on quick play, and they have the players to deliver. So for me, I believe Ajax at this stage, they should be able to qualify. I do not see any problems from their end. I mean, when you look at the caliber of players. Now, United Atletico, it's tricky. In as much as I would want a United to win, the club is currently suffering from so many things now. And I think it is largely based on a mental deficit in terms of capacity, concentration. So in terms of personnel, they have the players on paper to do it. But on the day when the match is being played, what would they bring to the table? And before we even came into the studio, we had seen something from the coach who was saying he's not sure whether Ronaldo is happy or not. It means you have problems in the technical team and you have problems in the dressing room. If all those problems can be resolved, then you can expect that United will actually be able to win this match.
Okay.
Okay, so Ajax, I think Ajax should have it home and dry. They're playing at home. They're coming from a 2-2 draw from Portugal. So I don't see, except a miracle happens again. The UCL is always never predictable. So, but barring any miracles, I think Ajax has this covered. Man U is playing in the Old Trafford. So it's supposed to be the theatre of dreams. Atletico has its own challenges as well. They have a Griezmann who's not been playing. I think he's been injured. They've got an injured. There's one of these was Lemar. Lemar is injured. He's injured as well. I am not sure they have an attack that has the potency to run riots. What we'll expect from the is typical. Keep it tight in the middle. Keep it tight at the back. Don't run forward too much. When you see that United has hit us, try to use a counter. Joao Felix will be very, 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 very critical and how he makes run. Between him and Angel Correa, they could carve off something. So I wouldn't say it's. I think it's a fairly balanced situation that we have between those two teams with problems, two teams trying to get some glory from the ashes that they found themselves. So for me, I think it is the match of the week to watch, and honestly it's hard to call a result from that game.
Chelsea is the name, and it's not going on well with Chelsea right now at England. Yes, the British government has decided to, in fact, it's getting hard and hard. Chelsea's credit card facility is suspended while banks assess sanctions.
I think there's a lot of